welcome to the Mac Gamecast. I am Jon Carr as always, and today Casper has joined me. How are you, sir?
Woo! Excited about all the new game-related things happening on the Mac side lately. Like yeah, a lot of things happening from a lot of different angles.
It is very exciting. Quick side note, I don't have my usual microphone today, so I apologize for my reduced audio quality. That'll be fixed next week. But for this show, it will have to do. Yeah, we have a lot of cool things. Like Casper was saying, things have been pretty sleepy for a while. We've just been throwing out fun episodes, chatting about old games, some cases really old games, like from 30 years ago or whatever. Um, but there's a lot of new games coming that have been confirmed. Some have just released. WWDC is in, 3 days or something like that. So
Starts
there's a lot of
Monday,
fun
yeah.
stuff to talk about. Yeah, it starts Monday. I was just looking at the time. It is 10 a.m. Pacific time, which
hmm
so East Coast is what, 12:01, which is like your, 7 p.m. or something like that.
7
So
p.m. Exactly.
yeah, that will be exciting. We're here to talk about basically a pre-show, some of the things that have either been confirmed, some things that are maybe a little speculation, or like maybe we know it's coming, but not exactly all the details about it. So some of our
Mhm.
like hopes, expectations, some of the new game stuff, maybe some VR stuff, a lot of cool things going on. So among all of those, what are you most excited for, Casper?
Oh, jumping in with such a big question so early. um, so, like, I, in some sense, the biggest point on the schedule, so to speak, is all the stuff going around the VR space, right? Personally, that's not the most exciting to me, though, even though it is probably the thing that'll have the biggest long term impact, at least assuming everything goes well on that front. But personally, I'm more excited about just seeing the direction of the Mac in general. I mean, obviously, we've already seen a lot of where Apple Silicon is taking everything over the past couple of years. But especially on the higher end desktop space, like the Mac Pro has not been present, and well, we've gotten one iteration of the Mac Studio, but seeing how that product line is going to evolve further along the lines, and seeing, there's been Gurman a while back said that they were just doing one release of the Mac Studio, the M1 Max and Ultra version we got, and then they would drop it. But now Gurman is like, well, a new one coming at WWDC, and I'm like, it's exciting to see the roadmap for the Mac, and personally I'm very interested in the Mac Studio lineup, given that it's probably the one that, in terms of price and performance category, is my future Mac whenever I need to upgrade my iMac.
Right.
Hopefully not anytime particularly soon, but in sometime down the road. So the Mac Studio is the personal one I've got my eyes on, but the Mac Pro is ultimately the one that's the most exciting in terms of what it has to say about the future of the Mac and the platform as a whole. I'm not sure. I really believe we'll see the Mac Pro at WWDC. That might be a thing closest to the end of the year, November, October kind of event. But I am hopeful that we might see it at DubDub, in particularly because people had talked about how this might be like the longest WWDC in God knows how long. So there's got to be a lot to
Hmm.
announce.
Right.
But yeah, the VR thing is less interesting to me, partially because I'm not really in a position where I feel like I want or have the environment for a VR headset at the moment. I don't know how much space you actually need to like properly make use of one, but I don't feel like I have the space currently. But yeah, I also don't and haven't. There's not been any VR things so far that have really been that attractive to me. But maybe that's just because I have not properly experienced it myself yet. But yeah, that's where I'm on that. How about you?
Nice. Um, two things for me, I will say. One is the expected 15-inch MacBook Air announcement.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
really
that's
keen on
exciting too.
that. I currently have a 16-inch MacBook Pro, which is what I'm on right now, and I still have my iMac, my 2020 Intel iMac, but I wouldn't mind trading in my MacBook Pro for the 15-inch MacBook Air. I don't really need the
hmm
power of the MacBook Pro, and the screen size is just tiny different. So that would be nice. Lighter form factor, and I don't know what baseline hardware they'll throw in the new MacBook Air, but all the silicon stuff's great. So really looking forward to that. And I know a lot of people are. A number of my friends and this and that who've been looking to either upgrade or acquire a new one. They're like, oh, Because same thing, basically they all want a bigger screen, but they don't want to pay the premium price of the MacBook Pro, which is like what, 2 grand, 2.5 grand, or whatever. Like it's a lot. So
Yeah,
there's
definitely.
maybe like, I'm assuming maybe like a $1,500 price point, or might be the lower one, 13, 14, I don't know, but that's pretty attractive for that kind of computer, that kind of power, assumed performance it'll have. So very much looking forward to that. The other
Yeah,
thing
what
is,
I've been
yeah,
hearing around is that it'll be like a starting point around 1200, and then with a bit more storage or a bit more RAM, you're looking at 1400. So yeah, definitely an
right.
attractive machine at that price point.
Yeah, I think it'll be a big hit. And I am very excited about VR. I agree with you. The potential of it is like the biggest factor, or the like sort of the big behemoth of the event potentially. But VR is in such early stages. I've heard that Apple's is possibly the most advanced one around, at least publicly. From some comments from people like Jon Carmack and some others in the industry, like very impressive, really cool stuff. They got to demo it. Apparently, there will be demos of it around WWDC. It's funny you were talking about how much space you need. Apparently, I read Apple will have some demos set up in their park, so it's going to be outside, I guess. But so I've heard it's a combo like VR AR, augmented reality headset. So
Yep.
maybe the AR stuff is for outside. I'm assuming. I don't really know. Um, I don't know if I have space for a VR headset either. What I'm curious is, um, like, will they sell? Is it, Apple traditionally has like multiple iterations of hardware in a given line. They have
Mhm.
a cheaper MacBook Air, smaller one, or a MacBook Pro, or different kinds of iPhones and iPads and so on. So, will they come out with just an AR headset or AR glasses or something? That was rumored a while ago, but now not known. The last I've heard, it's a combo one, and I've also heard it's very expensive, like $2,000 to $3,000 or something. So I'm curious. What I'm mostly curious about is, because that's not a very accessible price point for what isn't like a fully loaded computer that can do all kinds of things. I mean, a VR headset, VR AR headset is a kind of computer. It's a wearable. I guess they're calling it like a wearable market, like
Mhm.
the smartwatches and earbuds and everything is like the wearables market. But so I'm curious, can Apple really make like a real next gen device that actually pushes it forward beyond the Meta Quests and the Valve Indexes and so on, which are, they all have their merits and have all been quite popular. But I'm curious what it can do not only for VR, but how much can it do also, yeah, for like the Apple brand, I guess, and
Mhm.
specifically entertainment. I'm attracted to the idea of augmented reality. I always have been due to gaming and having UIs and interfaces. And I'm used to looking at a screen and seeing overlays and maps and information and messages and
Mhm.
whatever. And I've always thought, oh, wouldn't that be cool to have in real life? So
Mhm.
maybe Apple will actually bring something like that to fruition. I don't know. So I'm basically, really curious to see what they'll bring and also at what price point, if any. Will they have more than one device? Will it just be only for early adopters? Will plunk down 3,000 for sort of a first gen, almost beta tech? Like, what's it going to be? I've heard it's in development. Don't expect it till the end of the year. I think at the earliest in terms of shipping. I've heard
Mhm.
something like that. Yes, I'm just really curious to see what they do with it. And
Yeah, I mean, I personally think it is very much going to be like a hyper expensive early adopter developer almost oriented device, like not necessarily focusing on developers as the people who are gonna buy loads of them, like, but
right,
still having a consumer market, but being focused on getting developers on board making applications for it, having the early adopters pay the big price point for funding that early kickstarting process of the whole thing. Selling it pretty much at cost. I've heard a lot of rumors around that they're not really going to have a big profit margin on it. They're going to try and sell it
hmm,
pretty much at cost,
right,
but still being extremely expensive because it is a super high end device at first, and then building this ecosystem around it with having developer attention, making applications, making their own stuff super solid on it, and getting mind share around it, getting everybody to know Apple has a VR headset. It's super expensive, but the platform exists, and then further down the line, uh, introducing a profit margin and introducing lower price tier versions of the product with this ecosystem of applications and support and the platform around it already established. That's my expectation, but yeah,
no,
who
that makes
knows?
sense. Yeah, I'm also curious how much, if any, integration will exist with obviously Apple has their own ecosystem. I wouldn't be surprised if the headset requires, an Apple ID or something like that. That's pretty common.
Hmm.
The Meta Quest requires a Facebook account, which a lot of people resent because a lot of people don't like Facebook. I guess you could argue there's a lot of people who don't like Apple, but no one really complains about using like an Apple ID that I know of.
Hmm.
I'm curious, like is obviously it's VR is its ultimately its own platform, even on Steam and so on. Right now, there's like VR only games, for example. But you know, how much are they going to push things like watching Apple TV on it, or I don't know, again the augmented reality angle of like maps and messages and what have you. Like are you supposed to wear these things while you drive or just walking around? Like what is the environment you're going? I don't mean driving while using VR. I mean like the AR
Yeah,
angle.
yeah, yeah.
So I've heard because it's
I
supposed
mean,
to be
I
pretty
think
slim, almost like ski goggles or something, maybe.
yeah, I think
Um,
that physical dimension here is going to be the biggest problem to the AR potential at first, because my understanding of the rumors around is that these are not going to be like the Google Glass prototypes that we saw, however many years ago, that were basically glasses, but too clunky to act as normal glasses without people going, okay, you're a bit of an odd one. So that project failed back then, right? But the technology obviously evolves, and that sort of concept could eventually be something useful in the real world. But my understanding of this product is that it's more going to be these like semi-traditional VR goggles that you put on and immerse yourself in, with
right.
the whole AR aspect of it, of course, being there. But I highly doubt that people are going to walk around their day-to-day lives with something that is this big of a thing you put on your head and not these thin glasses, sort of
Right. Yeah, I
wearables, right?
agree. Yeah, you're right.
It basically needs to become as transparent as putting an Apple Watch on your wrist if it's going to be something people use in their day-to-day lives and not
Right. Like
an
mass adoption,
experience.
yeah.
Yeah, and rather than a dedicated experience you go into. So
I see. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah. I imagine they'll get there. I mean, I'm sure more than just Apple is trying to get there.
mhm,
Um, but, maybe they'll be the first to do it in, you know, whatever, the more accessible way. I mean, obviously they've been very influential and a lot of milestones in technology, whether it's things like iMacs or iPods and
mhm,
various things with music. And, they've taken over kind of, I think, the smartwatch market and the wireless Bluetooth market in terms of
mhm,
like sales and what have you. Obviously, there's plenty of other competing products people enjoy, but, um,
mhm.
so yeah, can they do it with VR? I mean, they have a shot because I don't, the market's still early, and I think people are hungry for more. But again, I definitely agree that there needs to be a certain accessibility point in like sleekness of hardware, or like you said, as easy as slapping on an Apple Watch.
Mhm.
That would be cool. That's why I do eventually expect that to be a completely separate product, not merge with VR. Maybe just
Yeah, I
some sort
agree
of
with
AR
that.
device.
I agree
Yeah.
with that.
But this is definitely like a launch point. Speaking of getting developers on board, not just for VR, but for Mac gaming, sort of
Mhm.
segueing to that, we do have a lot of cool stuff. Some have already come out. So No Man's Sky is finally released for Mac a couple days ago.
Yep.
Ted did a pretty extensive overview of this in MGC episode 30. If anyone wants to either miss that or go back and listen, he did more or less a big kind of review overview of the game. He's played it a lot. It's still a $60 game. It did come out in 2016, but it's still getting updates. Still looks pretty good. I think most of the updates are free. Maybe there's some paid expansion content. I'm a little unclear about that, but the game just go on sale and it's available on Steam, which is great. Not an App Store exclusive, which we weren't sure about.
Yep. So
I think,
an App Store
yeah,
version is coming later, but for now it's actually only out on Steam, which
right,
is also interesting given our expectations early on when Resident Evil Village came out just on the App Store, and we were like, it's only going to be App Store, and now it's even
right.
Steam first, right? So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and what I'm most interested to see here related to No Man's Sky in the App Store. So, Resident Evil, as far as I recall, was a single player only game. I don't think that one had a multiplayer element, though some of the modern ones do.
I'm not sure. I don't think so, but I'm actually not sure. It's at least single player first. Like that's the
Right, single
primary.
player first. Yeah, some of them have this like weird deathmatch mercenary PvP mode thing. I don't remember which ones. So normally the App Store can't, because No Man's Sky is a multiplayer game. I mean, you can play it single player, but
Hmm.
co-op multiplayer is a big part of the intended experience, from what I understand. So will the App Store version talk to the Steam version? Because as far as I know, there's only one game that's done that, which is Black Ops Mac way back in 2013, literally 10 years ago.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, it's a very good question, and I've also interesting to note is that for No Man's Sky, the multiplayer aspect, if you get the Steam version at least, judges judgments up on the Mac Store version, App Store version, of course. But if you get the Steam version, you can use multiplayer across PlayStation, Xbox, Steam, and Mac. So it's not even just that you can talk to Windows users; you can play with someone on PlayStation.
oh wow. Okay, I didn't know it was that
Mhm.
cross platform. I
Well,
mean,
I say
yeah.
Xbox. I'm actually not sure the game has an Xbox release, but it's crossplay across all the platforms it's on, except Switch, which I know it's on, but that's a separate thing. Switch can only play with Switch.
Yeah, it is on Xbox.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean that this minor side tangent. I won't go on it for long, but that should be the standard. You should be able to grab a game, ideally. Most games. Some games are really sort of console-ish only or PC-ish only, depending on the controls. But
Hmm.
the vast majority of games could be run on both. So yeah,
Hmm.
like there's a lot of weird cross compatibility with like just PC and Xbox crossplay and
Hmm.
like excluding PlayStation. Like that is a gold standard. I'd love to see more. Just play anywhere, play with everyone, or most anywhere. I understand the Switch is a separate version. That is fair.
Hmm.
There is a No Man's Sky Xbox version. I looked it up.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm extremely curious what they're going to do with the App Store version because traditionally, App Store multiplayer is only with other App Store users. And looking at SteamDB info right now, there is 7,566 people in game in No Man's Sky. Pretty decent
Hmm.
number of people. So you go buy it right now on Steam. You have around 7,500 potential people. I don't know how many of them are tuned into multiplayer to play the game with. Quite a few people. Or once again, like, oh, hey, I'm going to grab a few buddies. Let's buy No Man's Sky. And someone like buys it on Steam and someone buys it on the App Store. And you're going to be like, oh no, I can't play with you. Like, I'm, I'm really dying to know what they do there. Like, will there be some sort of shift in the App Store crossplay with other platforms? Or will it just be some sort of tweaked one off for No Man's Sky, kind of like Black Ops way
I mean,
back 10 years
hopefully,
ago?
hopefully the App Store is going to be more permissive on that front in general. But I don't know.
I would love to see that because it needs it. But that's a bit of a side tangent.
Mm.
Um, of course, there's some more game stuff to chat about, but just real quick so I don't forget. It's
Mm.
expected there'll be iOS 17, iPad OS 17, Mac OS 14. I don't know if it has a code name yet.
Not that
Watch
I
OS
know of, but I'm
10.
hoping
Yeah.
for Redwood.
Oh, that would be great. I like
I've
that.
been hoping for Redwood ever since like Mavericks.
It'd be a great name. I like that.
Mhm.
tvOS 17. I don't use watchOS or tvOS myself, but plenty of people do. The AR VR headset, which we've talked about. I don't know if again, like, will that have a particular product name or will it just be the Apple VR or something? Like, I don't know what they might
I
call it.
mean, the operating system is, let's say, indicated to be named XROS.
Ooh,
Um,
okay, that's pretty good. Okay, solid. And then the aforementioned 15-inch MacBook Air. And yeah, will we see any sort of Mac Pro teas or Mac Studio updates, or I guess the Mac Minis got refreshed fairly recently with the M2 chips and everything.
mhm.
Um, so yeah, like will the MacBook Air be a baseline M2 chip? Will they still the new one, the 15-inch one? Will they throw in a higher end M1? Remains to be seen. I'm hoping it's M2 baseline in terms of stepping their um, chips forward.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty convinced it's going to be an M2. What I'm uncertain about is if it's going to be possible to upgrade the 15-inch Air to an M2 Pro. Because if you look at the laptop lineup, um, it it feels like, you know, I don't know. I feel like it could be possible to draw enough power for a low end Pro, like the bend down one, in a 15-inch chassis. If you can do it in a, like, you run an M2 base in the 13-inch chassis, but I don't know. Maybe not. But yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, yeah, I still miss a tiny bit the Apple laptops of old where you could actually like upgrade your own RAM and even change the battery and whatever. But the RAM has gotten
You've
so
not been
good and the
able to do that
battery.
since like 2013 or something, I
Yeah,
believe.
sometimes I live like a decade ago in my head. Because that was kind of like, in some ways, like some of my peak, like gaming and the hardware sort of moments, journalism, whatever. I was really into it back then, so
Hmm.
I often reference that. But we do have a bunch of other games announced, not around WWDC particularly, but just in general. We have Elex 2, which is, what even is it? It is a open world single player action RPG game.
I have
Obviously,
Elix
yeah.
bought and not played yet. Um,
Oh, okay. Is it
I
some
I,
sort
lo-
of
I love the studio
like?
behind it, and in fact, on my
Oh, it's
best games of
Chronobytes.
yeah, on my best games of all time list that we went through a few episodes ago, I'm pretty sure I've already mentioned Gothic 2. Otherwise, teaser that's going to be on the list. Um,
You
and
did, yeah. Yeah.
it's made by the same people who made Gothic 2. Well, all of the
Ah,
Gothic games,
right.
except for the fake one, Arcania Gothic 4. That one's not made.
The fake one.
Yeah.
Oh, these guys are German. I didn't know. Okay,
Yeah,
Chronobytes are
it's a
developers
German
based in
studio.
Germany.
It's
Very
a
interesting.
it's a
Okay,
really interesting RPG series. Elix carries a lot of the, let's say, gameplay spirit of the Gothic games, but in a
right,
different setting. So it's this mix between sci-fi and magic. So you still have magic in the game, but it is very futuristic, post-apocalyptic. I've
right,
played like the initial opening, like tutorial introduction bit, but not nothing more than that. I tried it on through Wine, and it sort of worked. It ran like performance was good, but there was some really annoying visual glitches, so I put it aside and went, I'll give it a year and then I'll try again, basically.
right. What else do we have? We have Layers of Fear 1 remake, which I, the original Layers of Fear was on the Mac. I don't know. I don't think there's a, what do you call it, Silicon version.
Mm.
So it might be like an Intel only game. By Bloober Team, who have become sort of a big name in horror now. I think Layers of Fear was I think their like original first title, like several years ago. But apparently they're remaking it, maybe just an updated engine or something. And then they are making also a Layers of Fear 2. The Medium is also by them. That's also coming, which is apparently an adventure horror game. I'm reading the Steam tag. It says adventure horror dark female protagonist. Okay. Oh, this is the game. I think maybe you talked about this before. It's like sort of a split screen or split reality sort of game.
It sounds like one I mentioned at one point, but I can't remember
I
for
think it
sure.
was
But
last year. I think it was a while ago.
yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like I remember mentioning this, but I never really looked into it properly. I was just like, hey, this is getting a Mac release. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah.
What else do we have? Showrunner. Okay, this is a early access game, strategy, simulation, management, single player. Create and run your own TV show. Doesn't sound too exciting to me, but honestly, these sim games are pretty popular, and why
Hmm.
not? If it's well done, then
I
more the
used to
merrier.
play one called The Movies back in the day, which were where you ran a movie
Oh, wasn't
studio.
that made by the people who did The Sims and everything? I think
Probably it was a
maybe.
similar kind of art style and everything. So yeah, probably.
I'm pretty sure it was done by them.
Mhm.
Dragon Air Silent Gods is also coming, which is once again, oh, it's an MMO. Okay. Open world high fantasy strategy RPG, but it's tagged as MMO.
Mm.
Oh, it looks good. Looks Diablo or what do you call it? Oh my god. Path of Exile-ish, like something like that.
Mhm.
That's apparently coming. Again, release dates aren't here, but these are all just coming soon, coming this year at some point, supposedly. We have Fort Solace, which I feel like I've looked into before, but what is this? It's a single player. I think there was like some tech demo of this or something. It's a single player third person thriller set in one long night on Mars, planned
Ooh,
for release this fall. And the graphics look awesome.
interesting.
Looks cool. Space, sci fi, story rich, psychological horror. Honestly, those tags appeal to me, and the graphics look
Yeah,
awesome.
I'm not personally that into horror, but I do love sci-fi.
Well, I don't like horror, so when I see the tag psychological horror, like I don't think like true, like I don't know, like Silent Hill, like
Mm,
twisted, dark, nasty kind of horror, so to speak. But more like what I prefer is maybe like messing with like what's real or not, or
mm,
maybe like leaving something uncertain, or maybe your character's got like I don't want to say mental illness, but like there's like some sort maybe something wrong with them, some sort of mystery you have to uncover over the course of the game.
sure.
A little bit like oh my god, what's the game? The war game where you're playing in Dubai as the soldiers
Oh,
from like
Spec
10 years
Ops.
ago. Spec Ops: The Line, where again there's kind of like this twisted sort of reality disconnect over the course of the game.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not psychological horror, but that's kind of like
Hmm.
that kind of experience. I think is cool.
Oh, definitely. I like that.
Kind of like play with what you expect or don't expect, or maybe what's real or what's not. A little bit like that. I'm
Yeah.
hoping it. Yeah, I'm not into like true deep dark horror. That's not my thing. But um, I don't know what the game category falls into. Fort Solace, but that's coming. No Man's Sky, of course, is already out. The App Store version pending. And the other, I think, the biggest. Those are all cool. I think the big one, No Man's Sky, already out,
Mm.
barring the App Store release. Maybe we'll see some sort of App Store news at WWDC. But Stray, I think you mentioned already, and if you didn't, it's the cat game that blew up the internet. So it's not some viral cat video, which is common. Just a whole game where you play as a cat and like a cyber punky sort of future, and all the NPCs are robots.
Mhm.
Um, and you run around controlling a cat. I think you get a little robot of your own or something on you. I kind of
Yeah,
forget.
you get a little robot buddy who acts like he manages your inventory. He can act as a flashlight, where
Right.
he like jump up from your backpack and illuminate the area around you and stuff like that. And acts as a hint system as well. If you get stuck, you can ask your robot like, "Where should I be going?" and he'll give you some little clues about the next steps and stuff.
Right.
B12 is the name of the robot. It's a really cute game. I played it on Windows over Boot Camp when it came out, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. It's a fun game. It already was possible to run it through crossover, um,
Right.
but you had to disable some Unreal Engine feature that made the tone mapping of the game
Mm.
very flat. None of the colors popped. The contrast was significantly lowered and stuff. And obviously, it's probably going to perform better with the native release coming out. So that's exciting.
I assume this is an Unreal Engine 4 game, I imagine.
I'm pretty sure it's UE4. Yeah.
Yeah, I would expect it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like games like this. My gaming tastes have definitely changed in the last few years, or even definitely compared to like 10 years ago. Um, I really appreciate these sort of, indie-ish or maybe double A-ish games. Maybe they range between like 20 to $40. You
Hmm.
can probably play them for 10 to 20 hours. They're like a really focused quality experience. You can play it, you can feel really satisfied, you can talk about it. They don't contain lots of grind, they don't contain like infinite gameplay. Um,
Hmm.
Stray's a $30 game, just flat, what to speak of on a sale. It's not on sale now, but maybe later sometimes when the Mac release comes out, they put out a sale. This game blew up. I mean, it's overwhelmingly positive with over 100,000 reviews on Steam. That's only a fraction of the people who bought it that actually end up reviewing the game.
Hmm.
Um, just a really cool. I mean, most people like cats, even though there's lots of dog people, but conceptually, it's just a cool game. Like,
Hmm.
someone hasn't really made something like that. There's a fair amount of sort of creature animal games out there. I don't know, fair amount's maybe too strong, but it's not like the first animal game ever where you control an animal or something. There've been
Hmm.
enough of them done, but I think this one more novel in the way it does it, especially more of a sci-fi setting, cyberpunky
Yeah,
setting, and
it's a cool world. It's a sci-fi setting. There's a lot to uncover about the world, but it's also done in a way that I haven't seen a lot of the other animal games do, where it's very true to like the nature of a cat in a weird way. Like obviously you're in control of the cat, so you can do things cats wouldn't do. But a lot of the like animations and prompts and stuff are very natural cat-like in the way they're done. It's not like something like what are those games like the goat game? What was it called? Was it just called Goat Simulator, where it's just like over the
yeah,
top
yeah, yeah,
nonsense, right?
right, yeah,
They have a lot of nonsense, but it's not around the cat. It's like the world itself that can be nonsense at times, um,
right,
but it's still with a lot of grounded, not realism, but well, I guess realism in the sense that it's real from the perspective of the world that they establish, but it's not realistic,
right,
right? Uh,
sure,
and it's sort of serious and dark at times, but in a cute way. Yeah, and you have like little things where you can, as the cat, knock things down from tables and stuff like that, and you just do it in the most perfect cat-like way with the animations. That's just like the little paw, doop, 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 knock it down, right?
yeah, can't you
Uh,
also like contextually like scratch couches and all this other sort of cat stuff?
yep, yep. And it's even like the way you quote unquote knock on doors is just by scratching at the door until someone comes and
Oh,
open it, and you
okay,
like run in. It's pretty cute.
that's pretty cute. That is cute. Um, Yeah, I mean, there's probably something to be said for um, timing of releases, this was released, I think, about a year ago, June
Mhm.
2022. Pandemic-y things are still going on. Certain sort of games and experiences like Death Stranding, Director's Cut, just kind of hit people at the right time. I'm not saying it wouldn't have been popular otherwise. I just think occasionally certain factors contribute to additional success of a game.
Mhm.
I still think this would have been even if they released it like today, I still think it would be a big hit.
Yeah.
But maybe there's certain like desires to experience certain things or connect certain ways, probably heighten success of the game. That could probably be a whole podcast in and of itself. But um, yeah, as someone who I'm a big cat fan, have a cat here in the house, she distracts me sometimes. She's normally actually sleeping over here in the window. She's not right now though. Um, yeah, I'm really looking forward. I bought this for my nephew last year for his birthday.
Mm.
He played through it and enjoyed it. Um, anyway, I'm definitely going to grab it and play through it. Maybe we can do an official review once that's done, since you've already played it. Um,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
a
that'll be cool. So what? As far as other games go, one or two things. Grid Legends is still MIA from Feral. Like
mhm.
Feral Interactive, remember them? Yes, the previous and perhaps still kings of Mac porting. I don't know. It's hard to quantify that these days.
Mm.
Previously, of course, they were. Arguably, Aspire wore that crown, but then they fell off, and it was certainly Feral. But Feral's been so quiet, like a release a year, if that even. And with stuff like No Man's Sky coming or just come out, even though it's a seven-year old game, 2016.
Mhm.
Resident Evil, that one was fairly recent.
Mhm.
Speaking of Resident Evil, I've heard rumor that Hideo Kojima, if that's how you say his name, is also rumored to show up at the event. Um,
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily that he's rumored to show up, more that he's been spotted around Apple Park lately. So several times in the past, I don't know, few weeks or something, he's been
right,
seen by random people around Apple Park, and obviously WWDC is soon. So put two and two together, he could show up at the event, right? As a result of
right,
that.
right,
He could have been there, like filming parts of the pre-recorded bits. Since the pandemic
right,
hit,
right.
a lot of Apple events have been more pre-recorded, right?
True.
So it's possible that Kojima was there filming for that, and it's possible that Apple is leaning into gaming with that. And I think, and particularly with everything surrounding the whole probably gonna announce a VR AR headset thing. If you look at other things in the VR AR space, a lot of the, if you will, killer applications for that sort of platform, well, it tends to be gaming experiences, right? Like, name 10 things you do with a VR AR headset that aren't gaming related. Like, most of
Right,
the things people think of are gaming stuff. You might think of like watching a VR movie or something, but there's a lot of gaming experiences on that sort of platform. So it would make sense if Apple wants to get into that space, um, to have something gaming related, even if Apple still wants the platform to be more than games, or even focused on something that isn't games. Just given the nature of that platform, it does make sense to have a strong gaming library for it. So Kojima being involved with that could make sense. Kojima has also previously said that he was interested in exploring new ways for games to exist, or whatever you might say.
right.
And the VR space is a good place to experiment with that sort of thing.
It is. It is. I like how you said that because he already is generally, not always, but generally he's very experimental in his game design. He
Yep.
makes oddball games, so like half movie, half epic drama thing, but then it's also Metal Gear Solids or Death Strandings, and they have some haters, but I think mostly a big audience. I was just messing around with Death Stranding the other day because it was free on Epic Games, um, and I downloaded it, and I got to say, it looks amazing on my PC and my monitor. I don't have the director's cut upgrade, which apparently it said it added ultra wide support, but the game already supports ultra wide, so I don't know what that is. I'm like, oh, I might buy the upgrade because it was $5 on sale. And
They,
something
they
about
might
more
might have
FPS.
backported that back to the standard version after the fact.
Maybe it did. The director's cut apparently adds a couple more things, like a couple new items and missions or
Mm.
something. But I'm like, ah, whatever. And yeah, the game is super bizarre, super weird, really unusual. Like the kind of like big budget, big actor, sort of thing. There's a bunch of, basically Hollywood TV movie actors in there, like Mads Mikkelsen and, oh my God, I can't say her name. It's a French lady. Saya Ledoux or something. Sorry for my butchering.
No clue. No clue.
I've seen her before though, because all their faces are photorealistic. And the guy from The Walking Dead, Norman Reedus, I think, he's been in a bunch of other things. But and you're just this story's very mysterious. You're just a courier on what seems to be some kind of Earth that's overtaken by like weird alien plague thing, monsters. It's a lot of it's unclear in the beginning. I played for like an hour, but apparently most of the game is like running around carrying cargo, and you have to like balance your cargo and your weight and traverse terrain. It's like this is a AAA game loop with huge budget and actors and cutscenes, and it's like how, why, like how did this pitch get greenlit? Well, probably because it was Hideo Kojima.
Exactly.
You know, but apparently it's a really popular game, and they're making a Death Stranding 2 now, so that's like very interesting. I would love it if they brought that to Mac. Probably not, but that would be cool. But given he's quite experimental, I mean, I've commented on this before, and even just in Discord, like for the gaming thing to keep going, the momentum's increasing. Again, we weren't arguing, but like the optimism is increasing. I was just saying, for me, the consistency needs to keep being there. I definitely believe, like, I've never seen this sort of momentum, even in the sort of Apple gaming-ish heyday way back. A lot of that was still just pure ports, other than a couple things like Bungie way back in the day with like Myth and Marathon and what have you. Apple used to have gaming stuff on their website and whatever, but that was a different era.
Have we mentioned the Bungie thing on the podcast yet?
No.
So Marathon
I think I forgot
is getting
about
a sequel. It's been confirmed that Bungie is making a sequel to Marathon. Like, there is absolutely no word on a Mac release, and in fact, I don't think it's getting a Mac release, which is kind of a shame given the heritage of Marathon. But yeah, Marathon is getting a sequel. Bungie's making it. It's in partnership with Sony, and a PC and PlayStation release is confirmed. Again, probably not getting a Mac release, at least at first, but we'll see. But if nothing else, it might bring some attention to the history of Mac gaming from people out there who look up, what is this Marathon thing that it's popping up again that apparently already existed in the past. And people might figure out that the Mac actually used to have unique games.
Yeah. When you brought that up, I was actually like physically uncomfortable because I love Marathon is like huge part of my early gaming history. And sort of a remake or Marathon sequel has been teased for like 10 years or more, maybe 15. Not teased, but like there was like an image or two supposedly leaked somewhere that was like in the style of Marathon, but like better graphics. And there's rumors it was going to be made in the early Unreal engines, like 1 or 2, because of course that was, pretty high end back then. And then I think maybe around UE3 or 4 again. And, everyone assumed because Marathon series is very popular, mostly Marathon 2 Durandal, that like why wouldn't Bungie remake it in a more modern engine and more budget and what have you? But there was nothing confirmed, so it was announced, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm over the moon!" And then I look at the details, and it goes Marathon, the PvP extraction shooter, and I'm like, "Wait, nani? WTF? Marathon extraction shooter?" I'm like, "No."
Yeah,
What's
it's
happening
not
to
Marathon like it used to be.
My favorite like gaming franchises of all time, single player, like story heavy FPS, is now a multiplayer only. Like I'm like, I mean, okay, the game could be very good for what it is. What I think is a tragic misuse of the IP is, I mean, it doesn't resemble anything Marathon other than it's set apparently in the world of Marathon, though I think it's kind of nonsensical, even the little like lore blurbs they put out. Like, oh, you're a runner going, like, first that name is stupid. It just, I don't know, makes me think of some weird anime. It makes you just think of Mirror's Edge because you're a runner on the rooftops. But, I guess the lore blurb is something like it's in TOS, SETI, CD, however you say that for or something. And there's some mysterious sphere or world or city, or I can't remember exactly what it is. And it's full of like ancient technology and artifacts. And so you are runners in there, going to get the loot and the good stuff, and then you get out.
Hmm.
So that's like the game. That's why you're competing. Extraction shooters can be great. I played a fair amount of Hunt Showdown, not a Mac game. Other games like the Division 1 or 2 have included like extraction shootery dark zones in their game, like game loops. Um, what else is a popular extraction shooter? I can't remember. Hunt Showdown, I think, is the most notable one. I think they can be really cool. I just don't see the value of using the Marathon name to make this game. Like, does Bungie really need to use the Marathon name to make an extraction shooter? Like, I don't know who the game's for. It's not for fans of the old game because there's no similarity to the old game. It's not single
Hmm.
player. It's not story heavy. It's all PvP. It's like random extraction shooter stuff. And they say, oh, you'll uncover all the deep story and cool lore stuff over seasons. And I'm just like, oh god. Um, you know, and then if you're trying to draw new fans, I don't know. I think it's a crowded marketplace, sort of the battle royale. No, battle royale was an extraction shooter, but I sort of see them as adjacent. Oh, Escape from Tarkov. That's the other one I was thinking of. You
Hmm.
have Escape from Tarkov. You have Hunt Showdown. Like these games aren't like casual sort of games. You just pick up like you might play a few different FPSs or even RPGs or MOBAs. Like
Hmm.
you have to really dive into these games. They're very
Yeah.
nuanced. They're very skill based. Whether that's solo or teamwork, like you can spend a ton of time getting good at these games and it pays
Hmm.
off. So my question is if it's not for fans of the old IP, which it isn't, beyond the name itself might fool some people. And okay, Bungie already has a sci-fi multiplayer shooter experience. A little game called Destiny 2, which everyone in the world already plays. So it's like Destiny 2 is not an extraction shooter, but there's plenty of PvP in the game. It is very popular.
Hmm.
So I get it. It's probably going to be more fast paced or maybe more tactical or whatever, because Destiny 2 is a little more slower and methodical for the most part, and it's PvP. But I'm just kind of wondering, like, who is this game for? It's not really for existing Bungie fans. It's not for Marathon fans, and it's for extraction shooter fans. They're competing with the heavyweight, mostly Tarkov, but Hunt Showdown's pretty darn popular. And
Hmm.
maybe there's another game I'm not forgetting. Not to mention the whole sort of battle royale crowd, which I sort of lump in with them, if only for the I don't know if that was the cat. Um, like large multiplayer loot stuff, sort of compete for loot resources, and then sort of okay, battle royale usually escaping some sort of like poison or whatever, but sort of like drop in a big multiplayer experience, loot stuff, and run away.
Hmm.
They're not the same game, but it's like broadly kind of the same genre.
No, I totally get what you mean, and I kind of agree that I don't know what the market here is, but at the same time, I do think anything that Bungie puts out is going to see some level of success, even if it's difficult to identify the specific market group, right? Um,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I also think that there's you mentioned Destiny here. I think it's evident based off of Destiny and this that Bungie really wants um, like a money cow of an IP, right? Something where they don't need to produce several games every year, but they just have one title that they can iterate on and it keeps bringing in money because they wanted Destiny to be this live service thing, and now they want to do this extraction shooter thing. And as lump in the battle royale crowd, if you look at all these other games within these spheres, you have things like Fortnite and all the other things you've already mentioned. These are experiences, as you've also pointed out, where people dedicate a lot of time to one thing. Um, and that means that you can keep selling uh, stuff to this player group without needing to make a new game. You just keep making stuff for the thing they're already dedicated to and selling that to them. The battle passes from Fortnite, and I don't know much about the extraction shooter games if they have anything equivalent to that, but I assume they do, and that's where I really think Bungie
No,
wants.
they don't actually, but they do
Oh,
have
fair
like
enough.
in-game they do have like in-game cosmetics and stuff like that.
Fair enough, but
Yeah,
I really think that that's what Bungie really wants here. I don't think they're interested in making a marathon game every 4 years or a new Destiny or
right.
whatever. I think they just want something to sit on and make a lot of
Right.
money
No,
out of.
it's fair. I can't fault anyone. Like maybe it's the game they really want to make. I hope it is
Hmm.
because we might. I just hope we don't run into something like Arcane Studios with Redfall, where like these guys should have never made that game.
Hmm.
It's just apparently the devs really wanted to make one. It's like, okay, well, that's fine, but it's not what you're good at. It's like switching professions or something. It's like, um, Redfall's a total disaster and a flop. And there's some behind the scenes, what do you call it? Journalism that apparently revealed even the team knew it and hoped, who bought them? ZeniMax, I think, owns Arcane, but then didn't Microsoft buy ZeniMax?
I don't know.
Apparently, they hoped even Microsoft would pull the plug on the game, but it didn't happen. Blah blah blah. But um, I guess for me, I just see it as a missed opportunity. I am a fan, so I'm biased of the old IPs, but a good single player game is massive these days. Like it
Hmm.
can be well done. Whether we see it with games like The Witcher 3s, which is now an 8-year-old game, but still talked about, or your God of Wars and your Horizon Zero Dawns, and which now PC ports at this point, but big console games. There's plenty of like superhero games, the Spider Mans, and I can't think of a single player. Cyberpunk 2077. Sure, it had a bad launch, but it still sold like 20 million copies or something. Over time. So there's clearly a market for it. So I guess I'm just a little sad that Bungie, after doing multiplayer for so long, Destiny 1, Destiny 2, like, couldn't you just make something for a single player, guys?
Yeah.
Um, Now, that thing, you can play extraction shooter solo, and it does change it up. That's honestly a pretty fun experience. I'm
Hmm.
not against it. I'm only against that they're using the Marathon IP for this. Like, Bungie does very good gunplay. The feel of guns and weaponry, they're very good with. They proved that with Halo and everything. And even Marathons was pretty solid, but they really
Hmm.
took it like next level with Halo. And then they've refined it in Destiny and everything.
But
Do they have like really, yeah,
I feel like the general gaming landscape is a bit adverse to coming up with new IPs and prefers reusing things that already exist. Like if you look at the games that have come out the past, I don't know, decade, um, a lot of the stuff that's come out has been either based off of existing IPs from other industries, has been sequels to IP that already existed in the gaming world, or has itself been something that became a long running franchise that's still being used to this day. There's very
right,
little betting on a one shot, like
true. You're
let's make
not wrong.
something.
Yeah, right. Unless, yeah, it's like, who was I just, I was just talking with my buddy David. You don't know who that is, but this morning we were talking about sort of a similar idea. Like, are there really any groundbreaking games? And I was thinking, well, other than like Disco Elysium, has anyone
Mhm.
made anything like really like novel, like truly like, wow, I like have not seen anything like this before. Maybe Stray tiny bit fits into that category, but not entirely.
Mhm.
For the most part, you're true. It is playing it safe. It's the next Call of Duty. It's the next Diablo. It's the next God of War. Honestly, even some of the biggest games I'm looking forward to are like the next Witcher game, the next Cyberpunk game.
Yeah.
So it's true. I can't hate. Um, I guess I would be less offended if they called this marathon like something marathon
Mhm.
blah 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 marathon Star Runner or whatever, some stupid name. But the fact they called it marathon, I'm like, it's like a marathon remake or something. It's like
Mhm.
because they do in fact have a game in their catalog called Marathon.
Mhm.
Of course, it's not on any digital platform. Maybe it's on GOG or something, but it's certainly not on Steam or Xbox, PlayStation Store, or whatever. I don't think anyway. Um, so I guess it's more that I overhype myself on the announcement, but
Mhm.
I still wish they would name it something else because, in my opinion, it invites comparison slash confusion,
Mhm.
no matter even if a small amount. I wish they just called it marathon semicolon something, whatever
Mhm.
name. And then it would obviously mark it as okay, it's a marathon universe game, but it is its own thing.
I mean, if I'm
Um,
to be a bit cynical about that, I would say that the confusion is positive for them. Because if yeah, but like if 100 people buy the game out of confusion, thinking it's going to be a marathon remake, like that's 100 sales, and it's yeah, I don't know, it's
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Even though I know it's an extraction shooter, just because it's called Marathon, I already want to buy it. I
right,
want it in my library so I can say I own Marathon in 20 whatever 23, 24. Darn it,
yeah,
25. I don't know when the game's coming out. No release date, but it's true. They're not wrong. I still think it's a little sneaky. Maybe it's like it'll be okay. So I've done all this whining about the game. So what now? Seeing as I've whined about it, I'm hoping what they'll do to um, not that they have to satisfy me or something, but what I am hoping is that the game will come out and be so good it will like wash away all my sort of annoyance and distaste about it and make me appreciate it. Because I'll be like, well, God damn it, this game is just really good, and I'm going to play it anyway. That's what I'm hoping happens. Like maybe they have a really cool world building, which traditionally they have, even way back in marathon days on, text terminals and blocky levels. They created pretty cool worlds. Halo was pretty darn cool. Destiny's pretty cool, even though I think it gets a titch repetitive over if you play it enough. So I'm hoping they do something different with this, newish marathon verse they're expanding on. Yeah, I hope they do something really cool. Not like next gen groundbreaking, but just something cool enough. I agree with what you said that the Bungie name and sort of pedigree will, like anything they make, will have some degree of success. I still am, again, vaguely skeptical, again, like how much of the market can they capture and retain? Will a lot of people try this game? Of course they will on release. Probably a zillion people. But how many people will keep playing this game?
Right.
In comparison to other games they're already playing, which, again, as we've said, take a lot of time to get into and get good at. And they already have their friend groups over there. Who's going to migrate? But I guess I don't know the target audience. Are they going to target, I doubt they're going to target the hardcore sim audience like Tarkov. I doubt they're going to go like pure casually Fortnite goofiness or something. I assume it's sort of more middle of the road. Assuming, don't know. Very curious what they'll do. And as you already said, the game is a big Mac heritage. So would it be cool to come to Mac? Probably not. But if it did, hey, like, thanks, 2 thumbs up for like remembering your original fan base.
Definitely.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah.
In a sort of other direction, there's one more other game I'd like to just bring attention to, because there's some rumors going around that when revealing the AR VR headset thing, which again we're assuming is going to happen, but technically like nothing's confirmed until Monday, of course. There is a lot of indication, I would say, well, some indication that Beat Saber is going to be coming to the Apple VR headset. Which I don't know if you'd know about Beat Saber, but it's a fairly popular game within the VR world. This sort of like semi-music rhythm game kind of thing, but where you're like, imagine a mix between Fruit Ninja and a rhythm game, I would say. From what I've seen, like you're basically like using these like beat sabers, like lightsaber kind of things, but following the rhythm and the beat and smashing against these. I don't know, obstacles or whatever it's coming against you.
Right.
In a VR world. So that's indicated that would be coming to the Apple VR headset. Also, I think they're going to put a lot of emphasis on the newly released No Man's Sky in a VR setting. In particular, due to the fact that when Hello Games announced the Mac release was coming out, like not the original announcement, but recently when they were like, it's today. A guy named Sean from Hello Games, the founder, tweeted out like an emoji of a green apple, something happening very soon, and then an emoji of a red apple, and something more or something along those lines. And
what's the green apple for?
So the thing is, when they then actually made the press release, there was a green apple emoji in the press release for it's out on Mac now. So it's the red apple emoji that's still up in the air, and I think that's going to be like and it's on VR Apple's thing as well.
Okay, I would, do I want to spend the high amount of money like this early like adoption sort of headset will cost? No, but do I also want to grab a game like No Man's Sky and play it on VR? Yes, I do.
I don't think it makes sense basically for any title at all to buy something like the VR headset for just one thing. But if there's a category or catalog of 50 things you're interested in, then it might make sense. But if for basically no single game, it would make sense to buy something as expensive as the VR headset.
I agree. Yeah.
But quickly moving on to something else, I also want to point out, because I don't think we mentioned this yet, but the crossover, did we already mention that on this episode? Okay, good. So Crossover has recently released a new alpha pre-release build, which includes DirectX 12 support, which, if people don't know, DirectX 12 is Microsoft's equivalent to Apple's Metal, a graphics API for drawing graphics on the screen. And is used by Xbox and Windows, and a lot of the games out there render at least on Windows and Xbox, with DirectX. DirectX 12 is the latest one, and for a long time, games based on DirectX 12 would basically not run on something like Crossover or Wine or any other translation layer, because there was no feasible way of translating DirectX 12 on the Mac. But with
Right.
Crossover's latest build, it's now possible to use a small set of DirectX 12 features. Um, they have Diablo 2 Resurrection. I think it's Resurrection. Is that what it's called? Yeah. Running on macOS now. And it's running fairly smooth and with no major issues as far as I've been made aware. Andrew Tsai made a video on it on his YouTube channel already, and yeah, it seems to be running fine for him as well. It is worth noting, as I said, this is an early alpha pre-release build. It's not the stable version of Crossover you can just go and download on the website, but you can sign up for the beta test program and download this alpha release. As they've also said in their press release about this, they've tested it for Diablo 2 Resurrection, the re-release. They've not tested it for a wide variety of other DirectX 12 games yet. And they expect for basically every single title they try, they're going to find a lot of things that exactly they may run into problems with other games. They've not tested, a large number of other DirectX 12 games, and they're expecting that basically for every single game they test, they're going to find things that don't work that they're going to have to fix, because DirectX 12 is a big set of APIs, and they're working with a small set at a time, getting minimal functionality working, and then expanding the nature of the beast from that point onwards. But it's a very big milestone, a major step for the translation community, being able to, in the future, use Crossover and Wine for a way bigger library of games. Some like a lot of the modern games coming out are all based on DirectX 12, or at least have DirectX 12 as an option and probably also the default. Like Cyberpunk, Red Dead Redemption, Hogwarts Legacy, basically any game you can think of that released within the last few years, well, it's going to be DirectX 12, or at least with an option for DirectX 12. Also,
Yeah.
when what's their names? The people who make The Witcher, what are they called? CD Projekt Red. When they
Yep.
released that remastered update for The Witcher 3, like I forget what they called it, but they had some name for it, like equivalent to the final cut or the master cut or something like that. It stopped working on Crossover like it had without flaw before that, and you needed to set a flag for the executable before you could boot it again, telling it to open with DirectX 11 or 10, I forget which one, probably 11, because it had
Right.
switched over to using DirectX 12 by default with improved graphics. Well, in the future, that'll also work better, presumably, assuming that the code weavers making Crossover can iron out all the remaining issues. But again, very big step for the translation community.
Yeah, really interesting. Most notably, as you said, because any notable, big game runs on it. You already mentioned a few, but it's all the Call of Duties and,
Mm-hmm.
big single player games, Control, and all the stuff like Remedy, Alan Wake, and just all kinds of stuff. Pretty much anything runs on it normally.
Mm-hmm.
Although, yeah, the backup options are like DX11. Um, what what interests me, and again, this is a technical thing that I don't know about. I mean, cripes. This was back in 2015 when transgaming was still around doing their cider thing. And in 2015, around June, so yeah, basically 8 years ago, yeah, they announced they were bringing DirectX 12 functionality through their cider wrapper.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't release it, but it's like this is their next thing. They'll start porting DX12 games. I don't remember what was a big game back then that might have used it. Um, and I was like, okay, cool, because honestly, the tech had gotten pretty darn good. The initial stuff was really bumpy and stuttery and everything, but it got really good. Also, you could just steal the wrapper and use it for other things like Skyrim or whatever, and it was perfect. And then Nvidia bought them, and they were
Mm-hmm.
supposed to open a new office and be not sponsored, but they were supposed to keep going. They never did.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are 8 years later, and Trans Gaming, Code Weavers is like just now doing this. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering in this 8 year gap, like, or like what is it Trans Gaming was able to do 8 years ago that Code Weavers can like barely do now? either Transgaming's thing wasn't as big of a deal, or it was only for a select few games that they really massaged and tweaked to run on DX12? Or was it going to be more of a broad? Maybe it's because I'm assuming it was more broad sweeping, and they're just like, here's DX12.
Mm.
Maybe that wasn't the case. Maybe it was just for select games or game even singular.
I mean, it's very difficult to say, and particularly because I'd never really heard about the trans gaming thing in the past, like what their DirectX 12 plans were.
Right.
But what I will say is DirectX 12 also hasn't remained static. Like over the past many years, DirectX 12 has evolved and grown in what it's capable of doing as well. And I think at this point we're at DirectX 12.1 feature set something something something. So like the actual functionality within DirectX 12 has expanded quite significantly since DirectX 12.0 was initially released. And
Right.
games make use of more and more of these newer features available in DirectX 12 as well. So just
That's
because,
fair. Right.
right, and I'm also not entirely certain at what feature level CodeWeaver's DirectX 12 support will be at, right? But this is also like in collaboration with the whole DXVK stack, so DirectX to Vulkan translation. That is a public open source project that you can go and find the GitHub page for, and CodeWeaver is contributing to. Also working tightly with Molten VK to do the Vulkan to Metal translation. So we're going to first from DirectX, then to Vulkan, and then to Metal, because
Right.
obviously Apple doesn't support Vulkan rendering out of the box. They just support Metal. Now that might also be a factor in what Transmedia Solution was all about back in the day. I don't know if they did. They might have translated it to OpenGL 4.2 or whatever the latest supported by Apple back then was, instead
Right.
of Metal, and that solution wouldn't work on modern Macs, given that, well, you can still use OpenGL on modern Macs, but it is basically out the window.
Right.
Performance is really bad compared to Metal. You cannot. So with Apple's GPUs on Apple Silicon, if you run OpenGL, it's going to run on this sort of semi-emulated state where like you're running the GPU code natively, but the GPU hardware is doing a bunch of stuff to emulate old school GPU behavior. I say old school, traditional PC style GPU behavior with immediate mode rendering and stuff like that, which reduces performance and stuff like that. And there's just, it's not the direction Apple is going with their graphics framework. Um,
Right.
so I can't speak to what their solution was, but I doubt it is as future looking and flexible as what CodeWeavers is brewing up here.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And if you
I
look
also
at
wasn't, yeah. Yeah.
the Linux side of thing, where you have Proton, right? A lot of games are playable with Proton. Just look at something like the Steam Deck. The vast majority of the library available on Valve Steam Deck, it's running through Proton, which is equivalent to Crossover in what it's doing. But there's
Right.
just been a lot more effort put into making translation like that work for games on Linux, mainly by Valve. Um,
Right.
but that's using this DXVK backend as well to do the DirectX to Vulkan translation. And this is what CodeWeavers is basing their DirectX 12 system on as
Ah,
well, which means that they
okay.
benefit from a lot of the work Valve is putting into DXVK. They just need to do the work to put the pieces together to do the Molten VK part of the
Ah,
equation, where
okay.
they
Very
then
interesting.
take it from Vulkan back to Apple's Metal.
Well, that's really interesting because I think around when the Steam Deck came out, either pre-release or post-release, we had a discussion about it, and I think it was came up from you, unless it was Sam, one of you two. And there was a discussion around like, will there be some sort of trickle down effect or benefit to Mac gaming via all the Steam Deck stuff and the Linux
Mm-hmm.
thing? And of course, back then we couldn't tell. But
Mm-hmm.
now the adoption's so widespread, and most like so many Steam games, like every day is just a new major one.
Mm-hmm.
Or you see, poking on Steam, you see the badge like mostly works or fully supported or whatever.
Yep.
Because developers are incentivized to make their games also like do that extra bit of work to make them compatible. Um, so that would be really interesting if that, like, maybe slowly but surely, that kind of domino effect, if that's the right word,
Mm-hmm.
like eventually like hits against the edge of that Apple ecosystem, and then like, oh, we get a bunch of benefits.
Mm-hmm.
You know, could people be incentivized to put in some extra work, kind of like how they do for Steam Decks,
Hmm.
to make the game run on a Mac? Maybe. You know, as many, no, because the Steam Deck is what it is and everything, and
Hmm.
already has it all built in Steam ecosystem and what have you. But it's one can hope, one can dream. In any case, it's super interesting, and I agree. Even though I'm less informed on the tech side, that it is a big step forward for the translation, wrapper, emulation, whatever the word is, community.
Hmm.
Um, and it only it's a huge stepping stone for future stuff, whether it's
Hmm.
tinkering by yourself or the commercial side of it, product that you buy and use and so on. Pretty cool stuff.
There's also the fact that Alyssa, one of the main contributors to Asahi Linux, the project that aims to get Linux working on Apple Silicon. So she's specifically been working on GPU drivers for Apple Silicon GPUs under Linux. Uh, but it's not entirely confirmed, at least last I checked, where she's recently been hired, but she's gotten a new job, and it's very likely that it is at Codeweavers working on crossover. Either that, or some have been speculating that she's been hired by Valve to work on Proton or something like that. But it's
Uh-huh.
definitely something within that space. Um, Someone tweeted at her like Valve's newest hire or something like that, and her response was not exactly.
Hmm.
So it's
Maybe
something within that
consulting
space.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, but definitely something within that space of translation of DirectX, Vulkan, Metal sort of thing.
Right. Right. Yeah. So basically, in summary, all signs point to maybe, I don't know if you want to call it a second wave or a resurrection, if we will. We already mentioned Diablo 2 resurrection. Mac gaming resurrection, Mac gaming
Hmm.
reloaded. I don't know what's the right word. The
It's
potential's
just
there.
coming
We're starting to
from
see it.
it's
Yeah.
coming from so many angles. Like you're getting studios porting natively, doing their own in-house ports. You're getting, you still have Pharaoh working on Grid Legends, so they're still in the game, even though it has been radio silence for a while. You have Apple themselves starting to actually point out and trying to foster a community around the games. They made the announcements of Resident Evil and Grid Legends and No Man's Sky and all that, and indications are that they're going to be talking about games at WWDC as well. You have the translation world crossover and all the stuff happening within that space, and also the virtualization world with Parallels keeping up with the performance increases in their virtualization. And then
Right.
you also have the emulation world that have started to massively pour development efforts into making the emulators work better on Macs as well. There's been since Apple Silicon came out, RPGS3 has seen massive improvements on the Mac for PlayStation 3 emulation. Ryujinx is what I'm trying to say, has seen a Mac release, and that's just been getting better and better and better all the time as well. And Tears of the Kingdom, the latest Zelda game, even runs on Mac now. Like it's a brand new
Ah,
release, and you can run it on an Apple Silicon Mac,
very
generally
interesting.
with very few graphical issues and good performance. Um,
Right.
and the whole sphere around this stuff, there's just a lot more engagement than I've seen in a long time from a lot of different angles.
Yeah, I agree. I was, again, thinking back like 20 odd years ago or whatever, when there was sort of Mac gaming peak or
Hmm.
like highlights. And, there was a lot of engagement back then. And of course, I'd say it felt different. Well, of course, it's a different time, but, and even like the kinds of conversations you have are different because, Discords, things weren't then in your FaceTimes. And it was
Yeah.
mostly just often like forums and email and magazines.
Hmm.
Um, but still, even accounting for sort of the extrapolation of technology and conversations, it does feel different. It's almost like a vibration in the air. There's like something
Hmm.
humming, like something substantial, like beyond like even accounting again for like the changes of technology over time, sort of conversations we have or
Hmm.
the engagement you have. There's something like even beyond that happening, almost like
Hmm.
a rebirth, if you will. That's my feeling. That's my hope. Maybe it's a combination of new hardware, maybe VR stuff. But yeah, you have people like Hideo Kojima, who's you may not know him in the Mac gaming world if you just look there. But if you know anything about like PC or console gaming, it's like everyone knows who that guy is. Basically, he's a legend. So can we get people like him? Can Apple cultivate hopefully even more people like him? I mean, No Man's Sky is in itself pretty notable because the game launched. Not going to go down the rabbit hole, No Man's Sky, but like too long didn't read. The game launched to like huge disappointment and poor reviews because they way overpromised, way underdelivered.
Hmm.
But they put their head down. This guy Sean, I forget his last name. I remember reading, his name all the time back when the game came out. They put in the work and made an amazing game that's now rated very positive. Huge community around it, huge success, and he's kind of become not a what do you call it? Like a second chance story.
Hmm.
Like they didn't just because so many companies put out like a game that might be disappointing. Maybe not so many, some companies, and instead of like really fixing it, they just kind of move on to the next thing. Or they say they're sorry,
Hmm.
or they just lose money, or even they go under. Who knows what happens to them? Something happens. But this guy, like, he took the criticism, he took the feedback, he took all the whatever. He owned up to it. He owned up
Yep.
to his failures, his mistakes on the game, and they went, all right. They put their head down, they ground it out for like 2 or 3 years, and made the game they should have, made or wanted to make in the first place that everyone expected, and then now even well beyond that, years beyond that.
Hmm.
So it's like, okay, dang, this guy has a love and passion for his game. He may have messed up initially, but through sheer will and respect and hopes and dreams and who knows what all sorts of factors, like he's pulled himself up and the company and everything to now a point of like respectability and people instead of referring to him negatively, which for years it was negative, like No Man's Sky and Sean and blah blah blah. Now it's
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, No Man's Sky, like it's all just two thumbs up for No Man's Sky.
Definitely.
So it's like these like I just want to see like kind of more top dogs is the word I used earlier today on Discord. Um, it doesn't have to be like Call of Duty or something, but like, and it doesn't even have to be a Blizzard. It doesn't have to be like a major heavyweight in the space. Just like either more notable games or figures. I just hope they kind of get sucked into the Apple orbit,
Hmm.
even on the edge. Would be cool. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be difficult to get players like EA or Microsoft or Sony involved. I think Ubisoft is potentially possible because they have had some games with Mac releases in the past, like the
yeah,
Assassin's Creed games and stuff, or not all of them, but
Settlers,
some of
I
them.
think, and
Settlers,
yeah,
yeah. Um,
and yeah,
there's something in my mind that's just like EA, you're not getting those, at least not before the Mac has reached some sort of critical mass on the gaming front. I feel the
right,
same way about Microsoft and Sony, in particular because they are also platform competitors. I think Sony would
yeah,
be more willing to do something just because they're also releasing some of their older games on PC these days. But even then,
right,
I doubt they would be that interested in supporting a different platform as well at this point. But again, if we reach some
right,
critical mass, they could be persuaded, right? Um,
right.
but definitely there's potential out there. I don't like just to also set expectations here. I'm being very positive, and I do think there's a bright future ahead of us. But I'm not saying like the Mac is going to be as good of a gaming platform as Windows is, or an Xbox or a PlayStation. We're not even close to that point. Even like
Right,
if everything goes optimally, we're also not close in 5 years. But we're gonna be a
right.
lot closer than we are now, hopefully.
Absolutely. No, I agree. I agree. Quick aside, yeah, I also think of like all those big names, Ubisoft, very possible from previous support. Funny enough, the only EA games we used to get on Mac were through Trans Gaming and their
Hmm.
Cider.
Yeah. Yep.
That's when they first
Spore.
started launching this stuff. Spore, and there was a bunch of the Need for Speeds and
Yep.
the Prince of Persia remake
Yep.
and I don't know, a couple other things. Um, yeah, but then of course that fell off. I agree, though. Yeah, set expectations. But yeah, listeners, I think you should be excited. But it don't. Yeah, it's not going to be like over the moon and overnight. We're going to be on par with these other guys or anything like that.
No.
Maybe even in several years because they're also all advancing. So even as we advance as like a Mac gaming ecosystem, they're also advancing. So it's will we
Hmm.
catch up? I don't think anytime soon. But could we actually become could we actually have a conversation, like a real conversation about Mac gaming that's not just like, ah, ha, ha, Mac gaming, we wish. No,
Yeah.
like Mac gaming seems to be becoming a reality again, at least to that point. I think
Hmm.
we can be confident again. It's just a
Exactly.
matter of how many steps does that keep going? How many levels does that keep climbing?
Yeah.
That remains to be seen. But I think like as a baseline, we're like just about to like plant the flag again. Like maybe it's 3 days from now. I don't know, but maybe it's this year.
Hmm.
Um, we'll have to wait and see. But it does feel like it's just about to be there, like 99% loaded, like loading complete almost.
Exactly.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way. I agree. Yeah. Okay. Well, that is probably going to be a wrap for this. We'll have whenever we can via scheduling, we'll have a post WWDC show with, of course, discussion on the hard facts and whatever's revealed and
All
discussed.
the games that they're announcing.
Yes. Well, because they used to announce big games at WWDC, of course, famously Halo and everything, but even mind that they used to show off stuff. And, they have showed off some things, Divinity Original Sin. They teased, I think, what Grid Legends and No Man's Sky, but they'll probably show off No Man's Sky because it was just released.
Mhm.
But I'm hoping they'll also tease something else, like another Resident Evil, or just pick another big game, not necessarily from a major company like the Blizzards and Ubisofts and what have you, but maybe a more independent one.
Well, I mean,
And be like,
I
okay, this is
genuinely,
also coming.
I think what'll happen is we'll see Beat Saber on the VR thing. We'll see No Man's Sky on the VR thing. We'll see potentially something from Hideo Kojima, whatever they might have going with him there. We'll see again Grid Legends. They might talk about the success of Resident Evil, and I think that'll be that, honestly. But that's still something.
Right. It is. Yeah, more the merrier. Like as long as each year, even if it's a 1% increase, so hopefully it's more like a 5 to 10% increase. Like gaming takes up just a little more of the time, a few more slots, a little more of
Mhm.
the mind space, the visual space. That's a win for sure. That'll be cool. Yeah, yeah. All signs point to yes or whatever the 8 ball is. And we're feeling good. Hopefully, Apple's feeling good. They keep it up. Um, don't let us down, Apple. Come on, Tim Cook. Yeah, yeah. It seems to be good. So I kind of just want to go play Death Stranding now, but just yeah, good stuff. All right, we'll wrap it up here. So thanks for listening, guys, and thanks, of course, Casper, for all your insights and commentary. We'll be back when we can, hopefully soon, in a week or two or something, with the post WWDC commentary. And yeah, well, I'm sure me and you and many others will be tuned in Monday at the appropriate time to see what's happened and go from there. So thanks for listening, guys, and we'll catch you next time.
Cheerio.
Cheerio.